Psycho, a 1960s suspense horror film, was produced and directed by Alfred Hitchcock. This powerful, complex psychological thriller is the mother of all modern horror suspense films. It single-handedly ushered in an era of inferior screen slasher movies such as Homicidal in 1961, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1973, Halloween 1978, Motel Hell 1980, and Dressed to Kill 1980. Born in London, England, later Alfred Hitchcock worked in Germany in the 1920s. He was greatly affected by the expressionism art of the time, such as this well-known painting, The Scream by Edvard Munch. And works by Max Beckmann, Franz Marc, and well-known artists Pablo Picasso and Vincent van Gogh. The stylistic premise of Expressionism was that the artist's response to the environment was so intense that it affected the form of the art. Surface elements are distorted or exaggerated. As a reflection of the times, Expressionism paintings tended to be vivid and violent with jarring images. This influence of Expressionism on Hitchcock seems particularly strong in his early British films, the black and white films of the mid-1950s and the early 1960s, such as Psycho. Hitchcock also produced and directed other classics such as Dial M for Murder and Rear Window in 1954, The Man Who Knew Too Much in 1956, Vertigo in 1958, North by Northwest in 1959, The Birds in 1963, and Torn Curtain in 1966. Phoenix office worker Marion Crane is fed up with the way life has treated her. She has to meet her lover Sam during lunch breaks, and they cannot get married because Sam has to give most of his money away in alimony. One Friday, Marion is trusted to bank $40,000 by her employer. But instead of going to the bank, Marion steals the money and leaves town towards Sam's California store in Fairvale, California, in search of a new life with Sam. At nightfall, Marion decides to sleep in the car. The next morning, she is awakened by a highway patrolman who is very suspicious because of Marion's unusual behavior. He advises her to find a motel just to be safe. Tired after the long drive and caught in the storm, she gets off the main highway and pulls into the Bates Motel. The motel is managed by a quiet young man called Norman, who seems to be dominated by his mother. This sets up the thrilling, suspenseful story to follow. Psycho is based upon a novel by Robert Bloch of the same title, which was inspired by the notorious serial killer Ed Gein. Bernard Herrmann produced the frightening musical score for the film, and the director of photography was John L. Russell. It starred Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, Janet Leigh as Marion Crane, Vera Miles as Layla Crane, John Gavin as Sam Loomis, and other notables were Martin Balsam as Lieutenant Milton Arbogast and John McIntyre as Sheriff Al Chambers. Psycho contains a number of themes common to Hitchcock films: eyes, birds, hands, and of course a cameo appearance by Hitchcock himself, and something called MacGuffins, which were popularized by Hitchcock. He explains the term comes from a Scottish story about two men in a train. One man says, "What's that package up there in the baggage rack?" And the other answers, "Oh, that's a MacGuffin." The first one asks, "What's a MacGuffin?" Well, the other man says it's an apparatus for trapping lions in the Scottish Highlands. The first man says, but there are no lions in the Scottish Highlands. And the other one answers, well, then that's no MacGuffin. So you see, a MacGuffin is nothing at all. A MacGuffin is a mechanical element in film that matters a great deal to the public, and most of all, it matters to the character of the movie, such as the statue in The Maltese Falcon and Rosebud in Citizen Kane. In Psycho, there are two MacGuffins, the $40,000 cash and the phone booth call. The telephone booth scene is a simple one of construction, lasting less than 2 minutes of screen time, and comprised of only two shots, establishing shot and master shot. Being encased in a glass phone booth, the scene metaphorically functions as a message in a bottle, as it is the last communication that Arbogast has with the outside world before he is killed. There is no dialogue heard from the other end of the call, only letting us hear Arbogast's voice. This gives the scene a voyeuristic quality, as the detective is watched in real time. Each time he pauses to listen, it piques our curiosity, leaving the mind to fill in the blanks. Hitchcock also utilized a number of film techniques common to his work. Match cuts and dissolves, like the eye and the drain. Tunnel shots, depicting isolation. And a montage, as exemplified in the famous shower scene. Here's a storyboard for the scene by famous graphic designer Saul Bass that diagrams a number of the cuts. In fact, it features 77 different camera angles. The scene runs 3 minutes and includes 50 cuts. Most of the shots are extreme close-ups, except for medium shots in the shower directly before and directly after the murder. The combination of the close shots with the short duration makes the sequence feel more subjective than it would have been if images were presented alone or in a wider angle, an example of technique Hitchcock described as transferring the menace from the screen into the mind of the audience. This combination of shots leave the viewer disoriented and horrified. Hitchcock achieves this overall effect through his deliberate use of jump cuts as well as the setting. The intimate space of a bathroom and the lighting chosen present an extremely effective graphic portrayal of this murder. Psycho, a Hitchcock classic, establishing a standard for horror suspense films to follow.